Hello everyone, my name is Naomi, aka Nifty Nomi, and welcome to my channel, Be That Business. I'm a Canadian bookkeeper and new business educator, and I help entrepreneurs look under the hood to see how it all works. I'm fighting the good fight against double work and against giving CRA more money than you have to. I've been putting out useful and interesting newsletters twice a month on the 14th and the 19th. If you prefer to read your newsletters, check out my sign-up link in the description below. There's also a link to a transcript of today's newsletter. On to today's newsletter. Hello and welcome to March 29th, 2024. In this newsletter, what's due at the end of March, my 3 favorite resources for March, and what due dates are coming up in April. Let's dive into what's due at the end of March. Now, March 31st falls on a Sunday in 2024, so any March 31st due dates that I'm about to review are actually due on April 2nd, 2024. I do have a link to CRA's website on due dates, weekends, and holidays in the description below. And for each of the items I discuss, I'll also have a link in the description below for more information. If your GST/HST filing is annual and based on the calendar year, January to December, and you are a partnership or your business is incorporated, then your annual GST/HST return is due to be filed and paid on or before March 31st. March corporate tax installment. If your business is incorporated and owed greater than $3,000 in corporate income tax for the previous fiscal year, then it is required to pay installments for next year on the last day of every month. March 31st is the due date for the March corporate tax installment. Next is the partnership information return. If required, partnerships, except those made up of corporations or a combination of individuals, corporations, and trusts with different filing dates, must file a partnership information return before this March 31st. Next, we have the NR4s. Now, these are issued by Canadian payers who make payments to non-residents of Canada for income such as interest, dividends, rents, royalties, pensions, and acting services. These are due to be filed with CRA on March 31st. The T3 trust returns, they are also due on March 31st. CRA has recently updated their reporting requirements for trusts. Many trusts will need to file for the first time, and more information can be found on CRA. Though there are no other standard items due at the end of this month, be aware that if your sales tax filing is monthly, February's GST/HST filing and remittance is due on March 31st. If your sales tax quarterly filing is on a different schedule because of a corporate fiscal year end date that is not standard, the GST/HST for a quarter December to February would be due March 31st. Also, if your corporate fiscal year end is September, your corporate tax return is due 6 months after your fiscal year end, so March 31st. If your corporate year end is January, the income tax payable is payable 2 or 3 months after the fiscal year end, either due end of March or end of April, depending on your corporation. Check in with your accountant to find out more about your corporate tax due dates specific to your corporation. Now on to my 3 favorite resources. Each one of these resources will have links in the description below. First up is a comprehensive guide to the new CPP2. Starting April 2024, there is now a second CPP contribution that will need to be tracked and totaled for the employees' T4s and will affect employees whose earnings exceed $68,500. The 17th floor put out a comprehensive guide all about this new CPP. I also have updated my basic payroll tracker for 2024 to include a column for the new CPP2. My second favorite resource for March is, should business owners avoid CPP by paying themselves dividends? So speaking of CPP, this month I also found a great read from advisor.ca that can help business owners answer the question, should they avoid CPP by paying themselves dividends? Link to this in the description below. My third favorite resource for March is Office of the Employer Advisor. If you have employees and are registered for WSIB or WCB, then you should also be aware of your Office of the Employer Advisor. Most provinces have an employer advisor office that provides confidential WCB or WSIB advice to small and medium businesses and could also provide representation and support during an appeals process for employers, all free of charge. Below in the description, I have linked to your OEA. What resources have you found that have helped you start, run, or grow your business? Feature it and a call out to your business in our next Resources newsletter. What due dates are coming up in April? Now's the time to prep your April calendar. Be that business that is organized. Here are some April due dates that might affect your business. Starting with, if you have employees, April 15th is the due date for your payroll source deductions relating to March's payroll. Next, if you have employees, then you are likely registered for Provincial Workplace Insurance, WSIB or WCB. Now, WCB in some provinces is due monthly and on the 15th. In Ontario, WSIB is due quarterly, and the premiums on earnings from January 1st to March 31st are due on April 30th. Now, if your GST/HST is quarterly and it falls on the standard quarters, then the first quarter, which is January to March, is due to be filed and paid on or before April 30th. If your GST/HST filing is annual and based on the calendar year January to December, and you are self-employed, then your due date to file your HST is June 15th, but your due date to pay it is April 30th. Now, if your GST/HST is annual and is based on the standard calendar year and also is payable by more than $3,000 in the previous year you filed, then you are required to pay a GST/HST installment towards your 2024 GST/HST return on or before April 30th. Now, this installment should either be 25% of what your net GST/HST was from your previous filing, or 25% of what you predict it will be if you predict it to be less than the year before. If you're not sure, just pay 25% of what you owed last year. On to income taxes. For those who are not self-employed or are not the spouse of someone who's self-employed, their personal income tax return is due on or before April 30th. April 30th is also their due date to pay any income tax owing. Now, for those who are self-employed or are the spouse of someone who's self-employed, though their personal income tax return is not due until June 15th, your due date to pay any income tax owing is still due April 30th. Even if your income tax is not finalized, find out an estimate of what those taxes might be and be sure to pay that to CRA as an installment on 2023's tax account before April 30th. UHT, Underused Housing Tax Return. If you own or have an interest in a residential property in Canada with 3 or less units, you may need to file an underused housing tax return by April 30th, 2024. This due date was updated from its original due date of October 31st, 2023. Find out more details about the UHT return from my October 2023 newsletter linked in the description below. Last up is the April corporate tax installment. If you are incorporated and you owed corporate income tax for your previous fiscal year, then you are required to pay installments for the next year on the last day of every month. April 30th is the due date for the April corporate tax installment. Though there are no other standard items due at the end of this month, be aware that if your sales tax filing is monthly, March's GST/HST filing and remittance is due on April 30th. Also, if your corporate fiscal year end is October, your corporate tax return is due 6 months after your fiscal year end, in April. If your corporate year end is February, the income tax payable is payable 2 or 3 months after the fiscal year end, either due in April or in May, depending on your corporation. Check in with your accountant to find out more about your corporate tax due date specific to your corporation. If you found this video useful, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I'm also on Instagram at BeThatBusiness. You can tweet at me X at me. I'm at NiftyNomi, and I'm also at NiftyNomi on Twitch and TikTok. And you can find resources and courses about running a Canadian business on my website, naomiwilkins.ca. The video today was recorded in beautiful Gananoque, Ontario. Thanks for watching, and get out there and be that business that thrives.